Thank you. Cartman's, and then you have Kyle Seaback, right? Dipna represents the People's Party of Canada, Victor represents the New Democratic Party, and Kyle represents the Conservative Party of Canada. We have Brett from Malala, Hamley, the Liberal Party, Ifra Bag, the Green Party candidate, and Jeffrey Halsell, the Independent Party. So, without further ado, I think we're going to get ready to put the candidates on the spot. This is yours. So, would you like to take 5 minutes to introduce yourself?
How's that? Hello, everybody. My name is Dipna Caledon. I am running for the People's Party of Canada. I'm unclear if you can hear, if it's going through the mic. Well, up a little bit? Oh, here we go. Hello, my name is Dipna Caledon. I am running for the People's Party of Canada. I have lived in Dufferin, Caledon for over 30 years. I'm a mother to 2 children who I raised here. I'm also a grandmother this year. My daughter blessed me with a grandson. I work in finance in the private sector and have worked in the private sector with business all my working life. I love Canada. I love this area. It's given me a great life. The standard of living that I have enjoyed in my lifetime, I am sad to say I'm not passing on to my children or my grandchildren, at least not at the rate that the country is going right now. And that is why I'm here. I discovered the PPC in 2019. I love the People's Party's founding principles. The reason I looked was because I found I didn't have a voice. I wasn't getting heard with the legacy parties that were here. And I navigated towards the People's Parties and their principles of freedom, self-responsibility, fairness, and respect. Basically, smaller federal government, more autonomy to the provinces. These things rang true for me. I love the idea of a strong, thriving economy in the country, and I kept seeing more and more socialist tendencies and programs, and so that's part of the reason why I'm here. I'm thrilled to introduce the platform to you if you've never heard of it. It's mostly been the same since its inception in 2018. It was formed by Maxime Bernier, a former Conservative MP. He left the party. His feelings said there was just too much corruption and corporate connection in order to really stand for the principles that he believed in. Some of our policies are immediate moratorium on new permanent residents in Canada until we can cool down the crisis that they're causing in our housing, the economic crisis, and the social crisis that's being caused by mass immigration without a foundation to support it. Then reform the immigration system, which has ballooned 105% in these years to support the mass immigration. But reform the system to benefit Canadians, which will in turn benefit immigrants, which is what we really want with immigration. We want it to provide a better life for them also. Work with the U.S. To end trade barriers and ignite growth. Downsize the bloated federal and ineffective government and stop the federal overreach. Bring more autonomy back to the provinces. Lower taxes, and when I say lower taxes, we actually have a plan on how to lower taxes, not just say to lower taxes. Remove inter-provincial trade barriers and free our national economy. Build internal pipelines to improve the economy here and our job market, and reduce our dependency on foreign oil. Scrap all agreements with global entities like the United Nations, the Compact on Migration, the Paris Climate Accord, and other global socialist goals. Stop grants that are tax funded to global organizations, funding groups that promote radical gender ideology. Stop funding foreign wars. Return to a position of a peacekeeping nation. Focus our resources on our own national security to ensure our dependence and our strength. abolish the dairy and poultry supply management system. They're well thought out ideas and solutions at the People's Party. I invite you to look up our platform, read some of our ideas, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Victor?
All right. Let's see if this is on.
All right, how about that?
That was good.
Perfect. I'm a business professor at Conestoga College. I normally talk for 3 hours at a time, but I won't do that to you tonight. I'll keep it to 5, and just for you. But I actually grew up just down the street in Orangeville. That's where I went to school, that's where I went to high school, and then shortly after that, I bounced around the country for a while, as we tend to, and went over to BC for a bit, spent a bunch of time in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and then finally found my way back home. And so it's myself, my wife, and we got a little one at home, and so we're right in the throes of figuring out school for him, and the best part is he's actually going to the same school that I grew up at. And so it's really fun to see that come full circle, and see how much has changed, and then, as well as how much it hasn't. It's the same schoolyard, there's new buildings. The playground is new, but it also still looks old. And it's the same old place, and yet this building is brand new. I got so lost when I walked in. This definitely wasn't around when I was growing up. But it's great to see the things that are improving, things that are getting better. And the one thing that I've been asked more than any other, in every conversation I have, if I sit down for coffee and I tell people, hey, by the way, I'm a candidate for the NDP. The first thing I ask is why. They ask, why are you getting into politics? Why are you doing this? And, well, there's a few different reasons. And part of it comes back to, I finished my Master of Business Administration, my MBA. So I went and finished a business degree. And I learned all these things about how business works and how the economy functions and international and interprovincial markets and a ton about canola, because I actually did my MBA over at University of Regina. And I also worked for an internet service provider for a while. So think Rogers, TELUS, one of those kinds of groups, a little bit smaller. But our main role was actually to bring internet to underserved rural communities. My main job was trying to get internet to farmers, to small communities. And I don't know if everybody knows this, the farmers will, but there's more technology and more need for super high-powered fiber on those farms than in the households. The cities actually don't need the internet as much as the farmers do. To run these huge operations, I learned so much about, AI and drones before ChatGPT was a thing from a farmer who came to talk to our business class. There's so much going on in there, there's so much technology, and I learned so much about it. I also have worked in small towns, small communities. I went to Manitoba for a little while, where my wife is from, and my job was to work in marketing and pitching the Corn and Apple Festival. If that sounds familiar, it's because every small town has a small festival for whatever their local produce is, their local claim to fame. Them, it was corn and apples. And their corn was really good. And I learned actually a lot about how that whole food system works. All the challenges that go with it. All the pieces that go into getting a fresh piece of corn that you then have at a festival. There's actually a lot behind it. My role now is to teach the next generation. I'm a professor who tells stories for a living. That's basically what my job is. I tell stories about different jobs I've had, different industries I've been in, different things I've done for work. And I tell them about marketing stuff, and I teach some design classes, and I made an accounting course. I don't really like accounting, but I know a lot about it. So after doing all of those things, I couldn't just sit back at a time when so many of those things are exactly what's needed right now. Understanding these different areas and industries and these different needs in our community, especially right here. And it's home. I want to see my home improve and get better and continue to thrive. And so I couldn't just sit by and not do anything. So I kind of dipped my toe into the pool and then fell in. And here I am today, and I love the chats I get to have. I love being able to listen to people, listen to their stories, learn about the agro arrow, learn about these different things that have, there's so much that I've got to learn since being in this role. And my goal is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, to listen to those who haven't been listened to be able to push and yell and make noise for the people who need that. And, so my hope is to do that and to have some fun today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hi.
Well, good afternoon. Sorry, I guess it's good evening. I'm Kyle Seaback, and I've been your member of parliament here for the last 6 years. It's been the greatest privilege. I love my job because I love this community. I think the one thing you'll find is all three of us here tonight, we are very passionate about Dufferin Caledon. We love our community. The best decision I ever made was in 2009 when I moved my family up from Brampton up to Amaranth and raised my children here because it's such a great place to do that. We have such a sense of community, whether you're in Caledon East, Mono Mills, Amaranth, Orangeville, it doesn't Bolton, it doesn't matter. Such a great sense of community. When I look at this election, I think there's a couple of things people are thinking about. I think the big thing that everyone is talking about is Donald Trump and the effect of the tariff that he's threatening to impose and has imposed on Canada. What's that going to mean for us? There's a couple things I think about when I think about Donald Trump. One is, no one can control him. We can't actually control what he's going to do. And if there's a leader or a political party that's saying we can control Donald Trump, that's false. You can't. He is not controllable. He's going to do what he wants to do. But what we can do in Canada is a couple of things. We can build a stronger economy, an economy that's less reliant on trade with the United States. Over the past decade, we've become far too reliant on the United States for our trade. Canada's a trading economy. 70 to 75% of our GDP is trade. 70% of that goes to the United States. So when the United States has the economic leverage on trade with us, it makes it difficult for us. So what we need to do is become less reliant. So number one, we have to improve our existing trade agreements. Our trade agreements with Europe, called CETA, and CPTPP, the Comprehensive Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. Lots of things to fix on there that hasn't been fixed in the last 10 years, which will increase our ability to export our products around the world. We got to get rid of the carbon tax. Everyone's going to say, no, we got rid of it. No, we didn't. There's two parts to it. There's also an industrial carbon tax, which punishes all of our manufacturers. So if you're manufacturing something in Canada, you're paying high carbon taxes, which means your product is less competitive around the world. We're going to cut the second carbon tax, the industrial carbon tax, so we can actually produce things and export more things around the world. Number two, we have to build the country better. Right now it takes over 12 years from concept for a mine to the first shovel going in the ground because of endless environmental and other assessments. I'm not saying we shouldn't have them, we should, but what are you learning in year 12 or 13 that you didn't learn in year 6? So we're going to speed up these processes to make sure that we can get these things done. We're going to build mines for the critical minerals and the rare earth metals that the United States needs. When we do that, guess what? We have more leverage with them to bargain on tariffs. We're completely reliant on exporting our oil to the United States. They buy our oil at a substantial discount because we can't send it anywhere else. Again, if we were to get our pipelines built to Tidewater, we'd have other buyers. Leverage with the United States. We need to eliminate interprovincial barriers on trade. It's easier to buy a wine in Nova Scotia from California than it is to buy a wine in Nova Scotia from British Columbia. And nothing's been done on this for 10 years. We need a government that's going to take action on that. There's no ability to move interprovincially with respect to work either. Very difficult, especially in construction. All kinds of barriers. We're going to fix that. We also can't forget the last 10 years. We all know what's happened with the cost of living and housing. This is a direct result of the decisions that the federal government has made. I'm a big proponent of immigration. My wife came to Canada as a refugee. but we've had 3 million people come to Canada in 3 years. It's irresponsible. It's put incredible pressure on housing, on healthcare, on education. We're going to fix that. We shouldn't forget about the crime and corruption either. The We Charity scandal, the Green Slush Fund. The Liberals appointed people to give out money in the Green Slush Fund, and they gave it to their own companies. We got to clean that up. Gun crime in Canada is up 50%. Violent crime in Canada is up 50%. Gun crime 116%. It's time to fix that as well. Locally, I've worked hard to represent you. I ask you how I should vote on things. I send out flyers. And that's actually how I vote. I don't know a single politician who does that. I have loved being your member of parliament, and I'm always there to fight for you and the issues that are most important for you. And if you re-elect me, I'll keep doing the same. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So now we're going to ask some questions. And you have 3 minutes to respond. Is that correct, Mary? 2. I keep saying 3. I want to give you more time.
We had one last night, so 2's great.
Oh, okay, perfect. 2. All right. This first question is in regards to the cost of living and housing affordability. It is asked by the Caledon Chamber of Commerce and a resident who wishes to remain anonymous. With inflation, rising rent and home prices, this is a pressing issue for many Canadians. What specific policies would your party implement to address both rising inflation and housing affordability? And how would you balance supporting homeowners, renters, and first-time buyers in the current economic climate? Dibna, could you answer first, please?
For me, what I think, the truth for me is that anyone over the age of 55 is, for the most part, completely insulated from the single most horrific policy mistake that any Canadian government has ever made, and that was to invite 1.2 million people into our country with no thought of where they were going to live, where they were going to go to school, the infrastructure needed in healthcare, and the people who are bearing the brunt of this horrific mistake by the Liberal government and silent opposition are primarily the young people trying to get into the housing market and the working class, both Canadians and new Canadians. It's irresponsible for the government not to acknowledge the massive negative effect that the mass immigration has had on our housing economy and the crisis that it's causing. The People's Party's solution to that is to immediately impose a moratorium on all new permanent residents in Canada until the stress of the housing market is relieved, and at the same time deport asylum seekers who are here illegally. Respect local planning. A local government is should be responsible for our housing. Communities should decide what their needs are, and local government should be accountable to the residents for those decisions that they're effective. Local government should not be subjected to federal pressure, financial pressure, in order to densify their old neighborhoods or detached homes, in order to accommodate the failed mass immigration strategy of this government. So we would also restrict foreign home buyers and work with provinces to curb speculation and money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to hear a few things from me all night. I think one job should be enough to pay for the roof over your head and fill your fridge with food. I think that's something that just makes sense, and the NDP is firmly committed to that. Affordability is something that we care so deeply about, and something I care deeply about. I understand that very much coming from, I lived in Manitoba for a little while. You can buy a nice 3-bedroom home there for like about $200,000-300,000. That is not the case over here. I have lived that, I know that. I'm in the middle of living that, as many of you are as well. And I also think that a pension should be enough to live on. Seniors shouldn't end up finding themselves homeless just because they're on a fixed income all of a sudden. Sometimes for health and sometimes because the job suddenly disappears. I've met several people in that exact boat who suddenly retired, not necessarily because they wanted to. And then trying to be able to afford rent, trying to be able to afford your house payment out here, it's a real challenge. I think one of the solutions here, and you'll hear me say this time and time again, is if people just paid their fair share in taxes. And I don't mean you, I mean the people who have offshore tax havens and who are trying to figure out what to buy for furniture for the next yacht. If we made the ultra-rich actually pay their fair share of taxes, that would actually fund things like pensions. We also need to stop just talking about doing things and fixing housing and do it. The NDP has promised to build 3 million houses by 2030. A $16 billion housing accelerator fund, because if we build more houses, they will become more affordable. And instead of just talking about it, we need to actually do it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It's hard to answer cost of living and housing in 2 minutes. So on cost of living, a big part of the problem has been government overspending. The government of Canada is spending 43% more than they did a decade ago. Ask yourself what's better. And the way they finance that debt is they printed money. So when you have $20 and there's 10 apples, each apple is $2. When there's $40 and there's 10 apples, each apple is $4. So what we've got is more money chasing the same amount of goods, which is leading to cost of living crisis, in addition to the carbon tax, both the industrial and the consumer carbon tax. All of that we are going to fix. With respect to housing, we're now building the same number of houses as we did in the 1970s with 3 times the population. So the Liberal government's housing accelerator plan hasn't accelerated anything. So here's what we're actually going to do. There will be no HST on new build houses. That's going to save up to $1 million. That's going to save families a lot of money. Number 2, we are going to incentivize municipalities to lower their development charges. Okay, we're going to reduce their development charges by up to $50,000 if they meet a few thresholds, which will include approving houses faster. Approvals are a big part of the problem. Number 3, we're going to free up 6,000 federal buildings. The federal government is the largest landowner in the country. We're going to sell off 6,000 buildings so it can be turned into housing. We're going to sell off thousands of acres of land so it can be turned into housing. The other big one is this. We are going to allow you to pay no capital gains if you reinvest in Canada. So if you sell property in Canada and reinvest it in Canada, you will pay no capital gains. All of this is going to create a surge of development. We don't believe that government should be building all the houses. That's an NDP platform. Governments don't do things super efficiently. We want to make sure that people who know how to build houses can build houses, and we're going to help them do that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We're going to stick with the housing crisis, and Victor, this will come to you first. This question is asked by Community Metamorphosis and Caledon Community Services. Peel's housing crisis is acute. The wait list for subsidized housing exceeds 20 years, and regional services cannot meet the needs of 4 out of 5 households who need housing help. As the affordability crisis deepens and tariffs threaten family incomes, will you commit to supporting investment in new housing that includes allocations for affordable and deeply affordable nonprofit housing?
I love that question. Yes, absolutely, unequivocally, yes, yes, yes. One of the big things that drew me to the NDP was the idea of not leaving people behind. If the housing is the Hunger Games and some people win and some people get eaten, that's not the way that I see the world. I don't think we should have this, the winners win everything in a game of Monopoly, and then the losers lose it all. I think people should have houses. People should be able to live and afford a place to own, rent. Housing shouldn't just be an economic vehicle for investment. It should be also a place where people live. I've seen this firsthand, where a couple was a little bit in their older years, and one of them was still working, and the other was retired, and the one who was working passed away. Suddenly, the retiree didn't know how to survive. How are you going to pay rent? How are you going to cover costs? There was no big investment coming down the pipeline for them. They were just getting by, and now suddenly they weren't. So what do you do in that scenario? If you have friends and family, hopefully that works. But one of the things that we're committed to is just building more affordable housing supply. Instead of having just private developers build all the houses, let's have not-for-profits also build homes. Let's make sure that housing isn't just about making a buck, but it's also about places to live. I'm not against private corporations making money. That's what they're supposed to do. But we also need places to live. So some things should be off limits. Some things should be just a home and not just an investment vehicle. Thanks.
Thank you.
For me, I think it just goes back to how expensive everything's gotten, certainly in the last 10 years, and I can even go back 20 years. I remember when I bought my first house, my wife and I, we bought a house in Brampton. We made about $100,000, our combined income, and the house was $200,000. Now this was 24 years ago, but that made us able to have an affordable house with a affordable, reasonable mortgage. And the interest rates weren't great back then. I think our first mortgage was 6%. If you have a 6% mortgage now, people are losing their houses. Why? Because their mortgages are $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. The average home price, if you want to buy a semi-detached house in Orangeville, you're looking at $700,000 to $800,000. Imagine what the down payment is. How many people are going to have a $200,000 or $300,000 down payment to be able to have a $400,000 or $500,000 mortgage, which is not an easy mortgage to carry? And that's sort of at the low end. It's a supply problem, as I said. When we look at, we're building new house starts right now are at the same level as the 1970s. Think about that for a second. We have 3 times the population, and we're building the same number of houses as we did in 1970. We have to build more houses. We don't need more government intervention. I just disagree with my friend from the NDP. We actually need the governments to get out of the way of the people that build houses. We've got to build them faster. I talked about that before. In addition to what I said, we're going to incentivize municipalities. We're going to give you a housing target for housings to approve. If you hit the target, you get 100% of your federal funding. If you beat the target, we'll give you a bonus. So if you go 115%, we'll give you 15% more money. If you miss the target, we're going to take some money back because performance on this is so critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, you can answer. Oh, sorry. No. Go ahead.
Last year, the population the size of Orangeville, or almost Bolton, was dumped into our country every 9 days. Every 9 days, the population of Orangeville or Bolton came into our country. But we didn't build hospitals and schools and homes for them. And so that is the main reason why we're in a housing crisis. So when the bathtub is overflowing, we don't build more bathtubs, we turn off the taps. I think that placing a moratorium on immigration, immediately going back to what's causing the problem is a better solution. It's a crisis, let's find a new solution, but never look back at what's the crisis, what's causing the crisis. The PPC, we're about removing the federal government from provincial things, so we would not be supporting socialized housing. We would be supporting a stronger economy. Of course, we want to support the people that need it, the people that are unable to work and are disabled. But socialism is best when it's at a local level. And so a strong economy to support not government building of homes. Government doesn't do business well, they don't build homes well, it becomes very expensive, over bureaucratic. Let the home builders build the homes. Let the economy thrive that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I can go back.
This question comes from Caledon Meals on Wheels, and it's asked about senior daily living. Seniors are, sorry?
We can't hear you.
You speak up, please.
Okay. How's that? Is that better? Right. Sorry. Okay, seniors are one of the fastest growing segments of the Canadian population. They are better served when they have autonomy and control of their daily living, as they remain in a comfortable, familiar environment. How would you and your party provide support to enable seniors to live in their homes and or their communities for as long as they wish?
So, a couple of things. First of all, we've got to get the cost of living under control. We're going to keep coming back to this, I think. We talked about this a lot last night. The cost of living is the real crisis. You go to the grocery store, and I swear I get one bag of groceries, and it's $100. And I think, what's just happened? It wasn't like this. We've had a massive inflationary problem with food over the last 10 years. People might think I'm being political, but honestly, 10 years ago, you didn't have sticker shock every time you went to the grocery store. So again, we've got to get the cost of living under control. A big part of that is the inflationary pressures of government overspending. Number two, what I've noticed is a lot of seniors actually enjoy having a little bit of part-time work. A lot of them do. And the problem with that right now is the dollars you earn get clawed back. Your CPP gets clawed back, your OAS or GIS get clawed back. So one of our platforms in this election is that seniors can earn up to $34,000 tax-free. That's going to make a real difference. There's going to be no clawback of your CPP or OAS if you decide to get a part-time job. And I think that's going to make a big difference, the two things. Get the cost of living under control, let seniors keep more of their own money. That'll allow them to stay in their homes a little bit longer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. The PPC, our response to the cost of living crisis is we're always, excuse me. Smaller federal government. Our government costs us a great deal. So smaller federal government reduces a lot of the tax burden that we pay for our government basically with our taxes. So by reducing the size of the government, we can lower the tax base on the citizens and free up some money for seniors to pay on things. As far as the inflationary crisis, I agree with the Conservative member that prior money printing in the last few years has really exacerbated our inflation here in Canada. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kind of lost it there a little bit, but thank you.
Thank you.
Seniors is certainly a high priority for the NDP. One of the things is that we care about not leaving people behind. We don't think that just because you're no longer working, you should still be able to afford food and housing. Things like dental care coming in, it's not perfect. It's not fully rolled out yet. And yet, there are tons of people now who, without any coverage, because they aren't employed anymore, can now actually go see a dentist. Can now actually go get some teeth fixed. I know firsthand how expensive teeth are, particularly when you don't have insurance. That's the fun of contract teaching sometimes. And the challenge is that it shouldn't just be left up to, well, hopefully you'll figure it out. Being able to age in place, a huge part of that is healthcare. You need doctors and nurses and hospitals, and funding healthcare is a huge priority of the NDP. Being able to care for people, and not just those who roll the dice and won. Because some people, they made all the right choices, everything worked out for them, and they can retire and kind of sail off into the sunset. And a lot of people made a lot of right choices, but then the market went south at the wrong moment. Maybe your investment was tied up in some stocks that suddenly disappeared a week ago. You shouldn't just be left behind because the market went sideways. You should be able to afford to eat, to live, to see a doctor, universal pharmacare. You should be able to afford the medications that your doctor says you should take. You shouldn't have to split your medication in half to try to stretch it, hopefully. That should just be something you should. We have universal health care-ish. Let's get rid of the ish. Thanks.
Thank you. Back to Dipna. This question is asked by the Community Metamorphosis and Caledon Community Services. And it's regarding newcomers to Peel. Peel region is a magnet for newcomers. Over 60% of the region is racialized, and more than 52% of the population was born outside Canada. In order to ensure that newcomers have the tools to succeed in their work and contribute to our economy, will you work with the incoming government to ensure Canada provides funding for settlement programs that is sufficient for the needs of the people who come to this region?
The PPC's policy, I'll say it again, is to look after Canadian citizens first. My mother immigrated to Canada. The father of my children immigrated to Canada. I believe immigration is an important historical part of our nation and future of our nation. But right now, because of bad policy and irresponsible immigration, we've created a crisis. And we can't pretend that we don't have a crisis, and while our own people are not being able to find jobs that are good paying because of the mass immigration is lowering the job market, the salaries that people are able to get, and at the same time try and support new immigrants. So our policy is to place a moratorium just to stop, to get our economy back in strength. And then we would be able to support and bring in immigration that's responsible and beneficial to them all. But we're just going to, it's like living in a straw house. We need a brick house. And it's uncomfortable to sit up here and say that. It's uncomfortable to say things like that. We want to support people. We want a strong economy. We want to be able to support the new people coming in. But right now, we're not able to support our own citizens. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is something near and dear to my heart personally. My friend on my right, on stage left, has made their stance very clear. My friend on my left here, I got handed this flyer the other day, and it says "Stop out of control immigration." The stances of parties are fairly clear on these things. So I'll tell you a story. My grandparents all came from Latvia. They really enjoyed being in Latvia. They were kids at the time, and suddenly they had to leave or die. They left as refugees. They eventually found their way to Canada. My grandfather came to Canada because he won the Irish sweepstakes. He literally won the lottery, asked my grandmother to marry him, and then they came to Canada. Their life was not easy. They had to learn a new language in a new place. They had to fight so hard to make a life better for their kids. My commitment to education comes from my grandmother, who said, no one can ever take education away from you. And that's the immigrant attitude right there, if I've ever heard one. I teach at Conestoga College. I've taught hundreds of international students who are trying to do that journey right now. Their stories are hard. They're working so hard. And the scary stories that you hear, a lot of these are just kids hoping for a better life. They're chasing that same dream that my grandparents were trying to chase. Find a place that's safe, find a place that has a job. A lot of these young people are coming from, in India, the unemployment rate was over 50% for a while there. So if 1 out of every 2 of you didn't get a job, you're gonna start looking for something else. And they work hard. They work the night shifts, they work the shifts nobody else wants to, and then they come to my class.
Thank
So,
you.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to say, Caledon Community Services does great work for the community. I know I've been to their offices a few times. Part of the problem is what I said, 3 million people coming in 3 years. I'm not against immigration. My wife came to Canada as a refugee because we have a wonderful, open, generous policy for people that come in need. And this country is built on immigration. But when you get to levels that are unsustainable like that, we end up with some of the pressures that we're facing with respect to housing, with respect to healthcare, with respect to education. I don't dispute, they're probably all very hardworking people. The challenge is, we did not get ready for that influx. It was incompetence by the federal government. If the Liberal candidate was here, I would say to her, how do you support a government that had a policy that was so incompetent? So the struggle for organizations like Caledon Community Services, there's been a massive influx of people requiring settlement services, and again, the funding didn't go with it to help people settle. More absolute incompetence. One of the things is this, under the Harper government, we did a study and figured out English language skill and proficiency is directly correlated to your economic success in modern Canada. We raised the income, the English fluency requirement to come to Canada as an economic immigrant because it led to better outcomes. One of the things the Liberal government did is they lowered it even lower than it was before we came in. And that creates challenges because people who have language barriers have economic barriers. So this, like so many other things, has been so poorly managed. We will get the levels of immigration down to where we have the number of people coming that we can house, that we can educate, and we can properly support through settlement services. That's what our plan is. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor, this one we're going to start with you. And this one is about healthcare. This question is asked by the Alton Village Association. Healthcare in Canada appears to be in crisis. We feel it here in our community. What will your government do to improve public Medicare and address issues within the provinces across Canada related to public accessibility to doctors and the public healthcare system, along with reasonable wait times?
So I mentioned that I'd spent a bit of time in Manitoba, and I was there just before it flipped provincially from blue to orange. One of the biggest reasons why was healthcare. I lived in a very small community, and Corn and Apple Festival, it wasn't huge. But one of the things they had a hard time with was keeping doctors, was keeping medical staff around. My wife's doctor left to go back to the city. If we're not caring for our doctors, if we're not supporting them, if we're not hiring enough nurses and medical staff, then these communities, they start to become medical deserts. So that's why it flipped to orange, because the big thing that was being promised was investments in healthcare. No more cuts, let's invest in it. Let's actually put money back into the thing that matters. Health makes a huge difference. And preventative health is way cheaper than fixing things once things are really bad. Pharmacare, being able to afford the medication that your doctor prescribes for you, that's an NDP platform. Investing in the medical community, hiring more nurses. There was just a big promise from the NDP recently about that. The NDP cares deeply about healthcare. Universal healthcare came from the NDP, and we love to shout that from the rafters. It was a long time ago. But at the same time, it is baked into the DNA of who this party is. So we care absolutely deeply about investing in healthcare, investing in nurses, investing in hospitals, and let's stop cutting and let's start putting money back into healthcare. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to start off by saying, healthcare is a provincial jurisdiction matter, so we don't have a lot to say over healthcare, but I will say this, we've got challenges. I know personally, I've been waiting now 10 months to even have a liver specialist contact me for an appointment. That's far too long, so we've got a problem. We actually fund at a pretty decent level in Canada. If you look at comparative G7 countries, the funding per capita on healthcare, we've got challenges with implementation inefficiencies with how those healthcare dollars are used. One of the things that the Stephen Harper government did when we were negotiating the health transfers, so how the federal government funds healthcare provincially is through the health transfers that we do. And we tied increased funding to increased outcomes. We said if we're going to increase the amount of funding for the federal health transfer, there has to be improvements in wait times and other things. That was part of what we mandated for those dollars to go. So that's something, again, that we want to do. The other problem is this. We now spend more money every year on interest on the debt than we do on our health transfers to the provinces. Again, so all the debt that Canada had from the founding until 2015, the current government more than doubled. We went from a debt of about 500 billion to 1.2 trillion. We now spend more on the interest on the debt than we do on healthcare transfers. It's a disastrous record. The last 10 years have been really, really bad for Canada. We've got to get that spending under control so that we can pay more money for health transfers. Those are the things that we have to do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. Yes, health is primarily a provincial authority, but the health transfers from the federal government, they come with a set of rules that the provinces must comply to, and also when the province receives the transfer, they can spend it on what they want. So the PBC's idea is to truly give health back to the provinces. Instead of the transfers, the transfers right now amount to about 52 billion, which is about what the federal government receives in GST. So give that to the provinces. There are some provinces that are poor, so the existing transfer payments that they get wouldn't be enough to it would be more than what their GST intake would be. So we'd have to subsidize them for a while. But the idea of this is like right now when healthcare breaks down, the provinces say it's the feds, and the federal government says it's the provinces, and it's this. If it's truly given back to the provinces, then we the people have some say, because we vote in and vote out that which is not working for us. The other idea the PPC has is to allow mixed private and public, so everybody would have an insurance, but we would allow, I think Quebec right now has some private care places where you can go, but not every province does. So allow free market, basically. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think this is one of our favorite topics. This question is from the Caledon Chamber of Commerce, and it's about the tariff wars between Canada and the United States. How does your party plan to handle the ongoing and potential tariff disputes with the U.S. to protect Canadian industries? Kyle, I think this is to you.
So I certainly touched on this in my opening statement, and I'm going to reiterate this. We can't control what Donald Trump does. We just can't. One day the tariffs are on, one day the tariffs are off, one day it's this, one day it's that. So we're not going to be able to control what he does. But unfortunately, we are not in an amazing bargaining position after the last 10 years, like I sort of talked about. Right now, China has banned the export of rare earth metals and other minerals that are very important for the United States economy. Imagine if we had built the mines that have critical minerals and rare earth metals. But we didn't, because the Liberals passed Bill C-69, which is the no development bill, which makes it impossible to build mines, to build pipelines, and other amazing resources. So we've got to build Canada back up. That's what we have to do. The United States buys almost all of our crude oil. They buy it at a massive discount because they can, because we have nowhere else we can sell it to. Imagine if we had other options. Again, we have to build a stronger Canadian economy that's less reliant on the United States so that we get into the real bargaining to renegotiate our free trade agreement or to deal with tariffs. We're arguing from a position of greater strength than what we have now. That's what our plan is. On tariffs themselves, we will have a very strategic approach. We will match dollar for dollar whatever tariffs Donald Trump puts on Canada. But we will put the tariffs on products and industries that won't hurt Canada or Canadian companies. Very strategic approach. And we're going to create development zones where we will have fast permitting for mines, for pipelines, all of these things, so that our economy is going to take off. It's going to be a roaring economy, and we will be less reliant on the trade with the United States. Thanks.
Thank you.
The BBC's response to tariffs would be to not fight with our biggest trading partner. The U.S. has been historically our biggest trading partner. 75% of all of our goods produced each year are exported to the U.S. They will continue to be a large trading partner with us. So our idea is to negotiate with them. Many Canadian businesses work closely. I work with Canadian businesses who all day long deal with Americans. They're a big part of, they're a big ally and a friend to our business. So we're not going to replace them actually. We should make our trade more resilient, for sure. The PBC proposes, number one, let's address the concerns that the U.S. has with the corruption in our country. Rather than yell and scream about the tariffs that they're putting on, why wouldn't we want to address if there is corruption in the country? If there isn't, then we can say we can prove that, but their concerns are real. Let's own up and take responsibility for our role in the transnational organized crime and drug trafficking that is happening through our fentanyl, through our ports. If you don't believe me, I would encourage you to have a read of Sam Cooper's book called Willful Blindness. It's brilliant, and he brings receipts. He testified in front of CSIS to some of this. We have a corruption issue in our country, and it's actually really good for our country, for our society to face it and deal with it and talk about it properly. Sit down at the table with the U.S. and renegotiate the NAFTA. Put dairy and poultry on the table. That's what they're looking for too. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor?
One of the big things is if we can focus on being able to buy Canadian products, sell Canadian products, focus on rather than continuously need to move everything south, if we can actually buy local. And there's barriers in place. I've heard lots of stories of people who would love to sell things just a province over, maybe 2 provinces over, and they can't. So reducing interprovincial barriers. We can say buy Canadian all we want, and then we say, oh, well, actually, Ontario, you can only buy Ontario. That doesn't make as much sense as a replacement. We need new partners, work with the EU. We have lots of water around Canada. We have lots of ports. Using the ports we have, building new ones. And one of the big things is that's not going to solve it all. People will lose their jobs. People who right now work in the automotive industry may have already lost their jobs. So let's fix our EI system to make sure that they can actually afford to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage. Just because you lose your job shouldn't mean that you suddenly lose your job and your house and everything that you've been paying into a system that's supposed to be a safety net. So let's fix these things. Let's make them actually work for people. The promise I said earlier, 3 million houses by 2030. That's a lot of jobs. That takes a lot of work. So if we continue to build and have increased industry in that facet, we have more jobs. We have more people working with their hands, more people who can work in construction. All of a sudden, it's a new avenue for investment. Investing in people and making sure that when we have procurement contracts, make sure they go to Canadians rather than to US firms. Investing in Canada for Canadians would make a huge difference in this way. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next question comes from a resident who wishes to remain anonymous. Will any party commit to an expansion and restructuring of Canada Post to assist in removing our reliance on U.S. companies like Amazon, especially if Hudson's Bay were to be nationalized? Gibna, this is yours. You're going to pass? Okay. Victor?
Sure, let's go for it. Yeah, I can't help but dive into a good question. I think one of the challenges is, so I did my MBA and I learned about the cheapest way to make everything and the way to make the most possible profit. And it horrified me. The way to make things cheapest and fastest and best for the shareholder is to make them horrible and cheap and they break immediately and all the jobs go elsewhere. And the challenge is we need to keep reinvesting in good jobs. We need to keep reinvesting in making things. I was talking to, Howard's gone now, he's sitting in the front, but we were talking about working with your hands. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a job where you're working with your hands. I think there's an element of it's become so easy and so profitable for companies like Amazon to just outsource things. Jagmeet Singh walks with picketers. He walks with postal workers. There's an element there where if we support strong unions, strong jobs, if we support people over corporations, I think that would go a long way. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think there's a real challenge with Canada Post. I think they're going to lose $1 billion this year. And it's a crown corporation. So what that means is that all of you here, all of you taxpayers, are going to be on the hook for this. And it doesn't look better. You know, mail volumes are going down constantly. When's the last time anybody here got a letter? It's okay, but it's not very often. Most of our mail are flyers and other things, and even that's massively declining. So Canada Post has really got to reinvent itself. They've got to find a way to engage in the current modern economy. We're not going to change the economy for Canada Post. So I think they've got some real challenges there that they have to look at and how they're going to deal with that. Should we nationalize the Hudson Bay Company? Absolutely not. Governments don't generally do a good job of running things and running businesses. I say that with all honesty. We've seen some of the procurement scandals that you'll see, oh, you know, it was $300 to replace a doorknob on a door on Parliament Hill. Governments just aren't great at these things. So what we have to do, what we need to do, is create a business environment in this country where businesses like Hudson's Bay thrive. And part of what we want to do is lower taxes for people, lower taxes for businesses, so they're able to compete in the modern economy. That's the answer to making sure that old, venerable companies like Hudson Bay survive, not the government taking it over. Thanks.
Thank you. I believe this is for Victor, and this is a question by Community Metamorphosis and Caledon Community Services again. And it's regarding tariffs. Tariffs could have a significant impact on the 42% of Peel workers employed in sectors directly impacted by trade. While there has been talk about support for businesses and EI recipients, there has been little discussion about bolstering necessary social infrastructure to ensure its residents and in the times ahead. Will you support tariff relief plans that include funding for local nonprofit organizations that deliver community services in Peel? Sorry, resilience, I got the wrong word.
I start to sound like a broken record by the end of these debates by saying the NDP supports workers, supports EI, wants to see that system not leave anybody behind. And we really do mean it. And genuinely, that is part of what drew me to this party, was the idea of actually caring for people who would otherwise be left behind. When something like a tariff war is the reason why the plant shuts down out of fear of, well, maybe things get more expensive and the corporation might lose a small percentage of profits, the workers are the ones that suffer. The NDP stands for workers, stands for people, stands for the working class, those who work and pay their taxes and go to their jobs. That's what the NDP is all about. It is really scary when all of a sudden your employer decides that your job is gone. There's very little you can do, and it's often no fault of your own. Auto workers didn't do anything wrong. They didn't make Trump mad, personally. So they shouldn't suddenly just be left in the dust as a result. Finding and investing in education, in industries, in finding ways to upskill and change things around so that people can keep working. The goal isn't just to say, okay, you're now taken care of forever. It's to keep you from sinking, to keep you afloat, and to keep you moving forward until things get better again. So investing in people, especially those who are having a really hard time, and that could be anybody. If tomorrow the next industry that's targeted is the one where you work, suddenly this becomes a real issue. It feels far away until suddenly it's right at your doorstep. So the NDP is there for you. We're there to help you when things get hard. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So I think I know how hard it is for not-for-profits and charitable organizations right now. Just for example, people who used to donate to food banks are now going to food banks. So it's a tough time. And I'd love to say, yeah, the government should directly fund not-for-profits and charitable organizations, but I just don't think the government should be doing that. What I think we should do is we should make sure that the funding agreements that we have with not-for-profits and charitable organizations are longer term, so there's not so much time being spent on getting the perfect application done and hiring the consultants to do the application, all that. Longer term, stable funding agreements, I think it's a great way to deal with the issue. With respect to how do you respond to tariffs, right now we have tariffs on autos. We actually spoke to auto workers to come up with our policy. Our policy is that we are going to have no taxes on Canadian-built cars. We build a lot of cars actually here in Canada right now. If you have a choice between a car that has no taxes on it, depending on how much you're spending, but even if you're buying a $50,000 car, 13% is a big savings. That's real. That's going to actually keep our plants open. Canadians buy 2 million autos a year. 2 million new cars every year. If people are buying almost exclusively Canadian-made vehicles, we'd actually open 2 more factories in Canada. So that's real, tangible policy to help our auto workers. With respect to the other things, anybody else who is unemployed as a result of the tariff war, we're 100% going to be there to support them. But on auto, we want our auto people making cars. We don't want them to be retrained. We don't want them on EI, and that's why we've come with such a strong policy on that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, well, our proposal is not to initiate counter tariffs in response to tariffs. When we do that, we're paying actually counter tariffs are taxes. So if we initiate counter tariffs, then the working people are paying the taxes. The government is proposing to subsidize the corporations that are hit. So basically, we're going to subsidize the corporations that are hit. I liken it to the big bad wolf again. We're living in a straw house right now, and it's our fault and our responsibility. And Trump is the big bad wolf blowing up the house. What we should do is fix our house. most businesses, I know a couple of people who have said, yeah, my business is affected by tariffs. I sell everything into the US. And my customers, they understand it's the nature of doing business. Similar to the devaluation of our dollar has really affected our commerce. We have to be resilient. So, and as far as supporting businesses that are affected by the tariffs, a lot of businesses, like our mining industry, I listened to a guy talk about the tariffs, and he said, if you don't think that we were prepared, we knew Trump was going to strengthen his economy. He was going to try and re-industrialize, bring building back and industry back into his country. So they were pre-selling their goods into the U.S. in anticipation to protect their business. A lot of businessmen are good business people. They were expecting this in advance.
Okay, thank you. The next question is still related to tariffs, and this question is asked by resident Sherry Brioche. Locally, we have farmers that are impacted by these tariffs. What is your party going to do to support the farmers in this round as it relates to the tariff war? This is to Kyle.
I'm actually not aware that our farmers are being impacted by the tariffs right now. What I know our farmers are being impacted on right now is sort of counter tariffs from China as a result of the tariffs we put on Chinese EVs and steel, which is what's been going on. For a while, I was the shadow minister for international trade, and one of the things that I would say when I met with farming groups or any other industry associations is this. Trade with China should be the cherry on the top of the sundae, right? You should have your ice cream, which is trade with the United States. Your whipped cream should be trade with Europe or the EU or CPTPP or any of our other free trade partners. China should just be that little bit of cherry because they're an unreliable trading partner. The biggest thing that's actually hurt our farmers over the last number of years has been the carbon tax. It's incredibly punishing. I've met with farmers, and they've shown me their carbon tax bill for drying grain or heating barns. Some farmers are paying $100,000 a year in carbon taxes. Meanwhile, the government's saying, oh, there's no impact on food prices. I'm sorry. When the farmer pays a huge carbon tax, and the truck that picks up the produce from the farm pays a carbon tax, and the processor that processes the food pays a carbon tax, the truck that takes it from the processor pays a carbon tax, the grocery store pays a carbon tax to heat itself. Food prices go up. So the biggest challenge has been that. And I know the carbon tax has been cut last minute. There was a deathbed conversion by the Liberals on the carbon tax. I just don't trust them. Like, I'm sure they're going to bring some version of the carbon tax back that was punishing for our farmers. We never will. We also have to fix the business risk management programs for farmers. The BRM programs are terrible. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question so
Yes,
I
I
can
can.
answer it?
Yeah. Locally, we have farmers that are impacted by these tariffs. What is your party going to do to support the farmers in this round as it relates to the tariff war?
I also am unaware of what the impact is. I will speak to, despite the professed commitment to free trade, we have retained a very protectionist supply management regime here in Canada with our dairy industry, and I think actually, if I understand correctly, that has been an impact. The cartel, basically, with the dairy and the poultry industry, has been a stopping point to negotiate some of the free trade agreements historically. So, the PPC would like to abolish that or put it on the table. I can speak to that a little bit. I know that the supply management system in Australia and New Zealand was taken down. It didn't actually raise the price. Like the Conservatives, this government might say that it would raise the price of milk and butter, but in those countries it didn't actually do that. In Australia, they phased it out over 8 years. so the farmers could recap the investment that they had in it, and the consumers still paid less in the end, and the industry blossomed. As far as the Trump tariffs, again, we believe in negotiating, and we believe in being resilient here in this economy. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Victor?
I'm now at risk of agreeing with Kevin on two things tonight and last night. But this is one of the species that I did a lot of research on farming between last night's debate and today. Because I knew some of the pieces, but there were a lot of questions about farming and agriculture, and specifically how it affects the local area here. And I really wanted to learn more. My professor brain couldn't turn it off, and I did some research. So a few things here that the party, so the NDP specifically, has said. One of the challenges is that the US, they really don't like our supply management system, but we do. It protects our farmers, it makes sure that they get a price that they can count on. It makes sure that they can afford to continue to do their business. They can afford to continue to be in business. Reducing risk in that way, there's challenges, nothing's perfect, but it's one of those pieces that the New Democrats are not afraid to stand up to Donald Trump and protect dairy farmers and the supply management system. They're committed to supporting and growing Canada's food sector, including, and I'll go off a little bit of the list here, because again, this is not my area of expertise, but I'm unlearning. Protect supply management for farmers and consumers in all trade negotiations, diversify markets for Canadian agriculture exports, reduce reliance on the United States, introduce a payment protection program for produce growers, and take immediate steps to restore production for growers selling to the United States, create a pan-Canadian food strategy that will make Canada a leader in sustainable food production, investing in farming communities to make sure that they're ready to respond to climate change, establish clear food labeling and traceability rules with accompanying public education so Canadians can feel confident that they're purchasing safe and healthy Canadian-made food for their families, invest in high-speed broadband and cell phone infrastructure to connect farmers in rural communities, and respond to the unique challenges facing young and new farmers, including through supports for succession planning. So that's a little bit of the list there, and thanks so much.
Thank you. Who's up next? Is it Caitlin? This next question is asked by Fair Vote Canada, Dufferin, Caledon, and it's about election reform. Electoral reform. Sorry, my eyes aren't working tonight. Please share with us your personal position on electoral reform, and if you are elected, are you willing to champion establishing a citizens' assembly on electoral reform so that citizens can work together to resolve the issue?
Hi, I would definitely work with citizens on electoral reform. The BBC believes that the government should be small, and the government has a very tiny little role to play in our society, and that is to protect our rights and freedoms. But the citizens have the voice. So in that breath, yes, absolutely. I don't know exactly what the reform means, but yeah, absolutely, we definitely work towards that. We are the government, really. That's what I believe.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're the NDP. We believe in your vote counting. We believe in electoral reform. I think one of the hardest parts of this one is that it really hurts when it feels like your vote doesn't matter. If it feels like your voice doesn't matter, there's something just deeply painful about that. I have access to Google and Wikipedia, and I can see, before I became a candidate, I could tell that this riding, as long as it has existed, has been blue. For as long as sure, it goes back a ways. But I'm not blind. I can read a poll, I can see that, and it's really hard to feel like your vote counts when it feels like it's a foregone conclusion. So I absolutely support anything that helps make sure people have a voice. Make sure that democracy still feels like democracy, not just because you happen to live and grow up in a place that doesn't vote the way that you do. Are all the systems perfect? No. Do I disagree with democracy as it is now? No. It's one of those quotes of democracy is the best system of all the other ones that we've tried. Can we improve it? Absolutely. And I'm very much in favor of that. Thanks.
Thank you.
I've had many conversations with my friends at Fair Vote Canada. I fundamentally disagree that we should change our electoral system into a proportional representation one. And my arguments are several. Number one version is where the proportional representation is based on party lists. So the party will come up with a list of 343 people ranked 1 to 343. And the person, if you get 10% of the vote, you're going to get 34 MPs. And that means the first 34 on the list are the ones that are selected. So if you want to give absolute control to parties and party leaders, that's the system that you would choose. Now, I know there's other versions of it. I'm just talking about that one. There's also something called mixed member, proportional something or something. What ends up happening with that also is you lose your local person. So when you have a mixed member sort of constituency, one person could be doing all the community work and the casework. With the system we have now, we get stable governments. Occasionally we have minorities, but we just had a coalition that lasted for 4 years. One of the benefits of our first past the post system has been the stability of our democracy. You can see lots of countries that have PR where they have very unstable democracies. And look, this is the best country in the world. And I think it's because we've had such a great electoral system. So I love the advocacy that my friends at Fair Vote do. They work hard, they're passionate about this idea. Unfortunately, there is just no chance you're going to convince me that it's the thing to do. Sorry about that.
Thank you. This is from Victor. It's for all of you, but we're going to start with Victor. And it's about taxes. This question is asked by the Caledon Chamber of Commerce. What is your party's plan to ensure that the tax system is fair so that the middle and lower income Canadians aren't carrying more of the burden than the wealthiest individuals and corporations?
I know, it's a softball question, it feels like, but what I will say is that one of the things that drove me to the NDP was doing a master's in business. Understanding taxes and all the pieces that go with it. I specifically remember there was an executive from a shoe company, we'll call them Nike because they were, and they told our class that if you're paying taxes, you're doing it wrong. As a corporation, if you're paying taxes, then you've messed something up on the accounting side. And they meant this in all seriousness. And it broke my heart, realizing that there's so much money and there's people whose whole job is just to get people out of paying taxes, and those are the ones who can afford it. The mega corporations, the billionaires, there's a whole industry built around it, and I know because they taught me all about it in my master's. I think you and I pay taxes, and I think that everyone should pay their fair share. I think that you and I work really hard, and seeing that money come off, and knowing that there's somebody who's found some loophole to depreciate some assets so they don't have to pay taxes, and didn't have to actually work for it at all, is really challenging. So I think the NDP is firmly committed to making sure that the billionaires pay their fair share. That the weight of the things that we want to pay for come from taxes, but shouldn't come from your taxes because you're already paying those. There's a lot of people that owe taxes and don't pay them. We should start by collecting that. Start by collecting taxes that are owed to our country from people who hide them offshore and things like that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we want to lower people's taxes. It's in our platform. 15% tax cut for the average middle-class Canadians. We want to put more money back into the pocket of Canadians. That's the first part. Second thing is, we want to crack down the actual tax cheats. It's in our platform. We are going to aggressively find Canadians and businesses that have their money in offshore tax havens and offshore accounts. Because we're not just saying that the mega rich should pay, we're actually putting our money where our mouth is. It's in our platform. Now, interestingly enough, I don't know if you've seen the news, but the current Liberal leader, when he was chair of Brookfield Investments, was putting a whole bunch of those things in offshore tax havens. In fact, 3 of those investments were registered to a bicycle shop in Bermuda. Now, why would they be registered at a bicycle shop in Bermuda? Because it's an offshore tax haven to avoid paying Canadian taxes. So yeah, we've got a problem, and we're going to crack down on it because it should not be allowed to happen. I would also say that when he was asked, do you condemn the use of offshore tax havens? Mark Carney refused to answer the question, refused to condemn it. We do condemn it. The ultra rich should not be able to hide their money in offshore tax accounts. We're going to find those accounts, we're going to publish those accounts, and then we're going to pass laws to get that money, because the rich should not be able to get away with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The People's Party believes in lowering taxes also. Currently, most of our tax money goes to pay for the bloated government, so, and subsidies that are unfairly given to certain industries and not to others. So the People's Party government would eliminate all corporate subsidies and other inefficient government interventions, like bailouts of companies that aren't working. Gradually reduce over the course of the term the corporate income tax rate down to 10%. That'll free up quite a bit of money for businesses to become more productive and increase salaries. We would also abolish the personal capital gains tax by decreasing the inclusion rate that's certainly at 50% down to 0. And again, end the mass immigration policy as a solution to manpower the shortages, and focus instead on encouraging businesses to invest and improve their own productivity.
Thank you. This is also asked by the Caledon Chamber of Commerce, and it's in regards to infrastructure. So in fact, the next couple of questions will be regarding infrastructure. What is your plan to ensure long-term sustainable investment in critical infrastructure such as public transit, roads, water systems, and broadband in the urban and rural communities?
So, roads, water, other things, those are mostly municipal issues that deal with that, and we've had a long history of partnering in what we call tripartite agreements with respect to funding of those kinds of things. We would, of course, continue to engage in those things. Rural broadband is really the issue that drives me bananas. We have a really rural riding, and the current government said that everyone in rural Canada would have access to broadband by 2030. Well, it's 2025 and really very little progress has been made. And what I actually think is interesting is this. We're still trying to lay fiber optic cable, aren't we? Fiber optic cable up and down rural roads all across Canada. It doesn't seem like actually the solution to me. What we should be looking at is looking at suborbital technology. No, I'm not suggesting Starlink with Elon Musk. I think everyone in this room would say that's not who we should be having an agreement with. But there are other companies that do it. And what we should be doing is making suborbital technology more available for Canadians, more affordable, more available. There's a role for the government in that. Because let's be honest, we're not going to trench fiber optic cable up and down every concession in Dufferin County or in Caledon, let alone all across Canada. So I think the government has to have a major rethink on that and look at doing a different investment. The technology has changed. It's like you're funding the buggy whip manufacturer, when the automobile has started. Fiber optic cable might be great for being in downtown Toronto. It's not great when you're living in a rural riding like ours. Thanks.
Thank you.
Again, I would just say that the People's Party platform of lowering income taxes all across the board would enable the local economy to be stronger. We would also scrap a lot of agreements with global entities. That's where a lot of our tax dollars are going, and so our money is flowing out of our country. So by lowering our taxes, scrapping these agreements will allow the money to flow back into the local economy.
It's really funny because Kevin and I, we've just been agreeing so much, or sort of having some, the agreement's gone. But I think one of the things that, I actually used to work for an ISP. My job existed because, and I actually worked with a federal partnership to install internet to rural communities. And you're absolutely right on the fact that you can't put that everywhere. If it's solid rock, blasting through solid rock is very difficult. But there is a thing where it creates jobs. It creates work. And actually, the irony is that even if you have their LEO, low Earth orbit satellites, even if you create your whole system, you actually have to have fiber to every site where those satellites beam back down to talk to the main sites. That's why cell phone towers have fiber everywhere. One of the things that I realized when I learned how the machinery of so many different technologies worked is there's a really complicated system behind all of them. And a lot of times these systems involve jobs, involve work, and great work, high-tech work, people working on massive servers with wild technology at the cutting edge of fiber tech, as well as people who just have to dig in the ground and drill, but using new technologies that instead of just digging a trench, they do directional drilling. I think continuing to constantly invest in infrastructure is one of the best ways we can both have great work for Canadians as well as improving life for Canadians. And I think that's an element where if we continue to invest in Canadians rather than in giant corporations, rather than investing and giving subsidies to giant oil corporations, let's put those to create little local jobs for you and me and our neighbors instead. Thanks.
Thank you. This is a really passionate question, and I hope I get all the words right because my eyes don't work as well as they used to. Yeah.
This question is asked by the Friends of the Headwaters. The provincial government plans to build Highway 413. 45% of the highway runs through Caledon's prime farmland, wetlands, and woodlots. According to the Ministry of Transportation's own report, the highway will not save people time and it won't relieve congestion on other 400 series highways, especially the 401. The 413 appears to be a development corridor for big box stores, warehouses, trucking depots, and single-family detached homes. In other words, more urban sprawl, which is no longer a viable model of development if we want a healthy environment, productive farmland, and vibrant communities. The federal government has a role to play in issuing permits to ensure the endangered and species at risk are protected. Will you and your government fight to stop the 413 by withholding permits when endangered and at-risk species are threatened?
I think it was different.
I'll stick with what I know, and that is that we're for removing the federal government from local planning issues. And I'll bring it back to the need for all of this growth is the mass immigration, the crisis that we're under right now, and the need to stop it. I mean, even reducing the immigration down to 250,000 as the Conservatives are proposing. I believe that's the correct amount. That isn't counting the international students that are coming in or the temporary foreign workers. So I think we need to really address that. We really need to stop it until we can stabilize our society.
Thank you.
One of the big challenges is when you get so involved in news and politics and all these things, you want to be involved in everything. And there's an element where federally there's a place for involvement, and there's some places where federally we're not involved. It's a little bit hard to kind of say, well, actually there was a bunch of people wearing orange who said that highway shouldn't be a thing, and they got voted and not in this area. A lot of these come down to provincial things. A lot of these come down to provincial responsibilities. I think the bottom line for me is who is the one that's the foremost of the government's mind? Is it corporations? Is it the ones who are going to make all the money by building that big box store? Are they the ones making all the profits? Is that the one that is the best friend of your government? Or is it the local person, the local farmer, the person just trying to live in their community and doesn't want to have their home or farm plowed for by a highway that seems nonsensical and just ignores the environment? A very passionate thing of the NDP is caring for the environment, caring for the climate. So I can say that if the government cares first and foremost about the people over the profits, then there can be some changes. Can it fix everything that's a provincial jurisdiction? No. But there can be pressure. There can be changes. There can be things that can be, anything that can be done, the NDP would do to try to keep you and your farm and your home safe from profiteering.
Thank you.
I'm not a big fan of Highway 413. I'll say that off the start. It's not my issue. I will say that I was shocked that the federal government did not go forward with an environmental assessment with some of the species at risk that I'm aware of. Look, I'm not afraid to take on fights on things that have really nothing to do with me if I think it's right. I took on a fight with the air and water treatment plant because they were not actually taking into consideration the effects that the effluent going into the West Credit River would have on some species at risk. And it wasn't a popular decision with a lot of people. I got a lot of phone calls, people very unhappy with me about that. So I'm not afraid to take on tough issues, even if it's not necessarily with something that I'm directly affected by. But I'd have to know more about what's going to happen with it. I would just say generally, I'm not a fan of the 413. I think we should be investing in transit. You know, I go to visit my brother, he lives in the UK, and you look at the train system to go from anywhere in the UK into London. It's like London's the hub, and then it's of a wheel, and the spokes are all the train lines going in. You know, why did the town of Orangeville sell off the rail line there? We could have turned that, it would have cost a lot of money, turned it into a rail line, then you got a north-south corridor. I just think we should be investing in transit, not building a new highway. So, yeah, that's probably where I'm going to be. Thanks.
Thank you. This is for Victor, and the rest of you, of course. And this is about sea container inspections. This question is asked by the Caledon Community Road Safety and Advocacy. Considering that Canada only inspects a very small number of sea containers entering and exiting the country, would you be in favor of drastically increasing the number of containers inspected, especially in the federal rail yards throughout the country? If so, what percentage of containers do you think should be inspected?
This is another one where I did a little bit of homework between last night and tonight. And the NDP is actually pretty firmly committed to increasing investment in border services, in things that are going out of the country. There's lots of reasons for that. Oftentimes, the people who don't want to let you see the thing that's coming in, we don't want that used in here. Whether that's weapons or drugs or illegal automobiles going in or out, there needs to be investment in that. There needs to stop being cuts or blind eye turned towards those. And the NDP is actually pretty firmly committed to increasing that because it improves the well-being of Canadians. Improves our everyday life and health and wellness. Our communities are safer. Again, it's a preventative versus just dealing with it after the fact. If you can prevent and make it not economically viable to ship stolen cars out from ports, then they're going to find something else to do instead. One of the reasons why is that if it's economically viable, if it makes a lot of profit and it's easy and there's not a lot of consequence to it, that's a thing that keeps happening. So let's invest in border security, let's keep investing in our border and continue to, and again, jobs. You hire more people to do those things, you continue to invest in people, in jobs, in our well-being and quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent, but it'll be worth it. So the current government wants to spend $5 billion buying back guns from law-abiding gun owners to improve, quote, public safety. The head of the Peel Police Association said 85% of the guns used in the commission of offenses are illegal guns coming from the United States. The other 15% have the serial numbers shaved off so they can't tell, but they're pretty sure. We would take that $5 billion and invest it in border security, including at our ports. But it actually goes deeper than this. In my role as the Shadow Minister for Labour, I met with the Teamsters, sorry, not the Teamsters, the longshoremen unions that operate at our ports. It's really interesting. The ports have eliminated positions where people would be able to look at a manifest that says the container is empty. And as they're lifting it up, and they're like, when they lift it on the cranes, they know the weight. And they could say, wait a minute, something's going on here. Those positions were eliminated in one of the rounds of collective bargaining. So there's actually a way we can create employment from this. So number one, yes, we're going to put in heavy-duty scanners at our ports to make sure that containers that are supposed to contain widgets and they have 2 BMWs in it because car thefts have gone through the roof, we can detect that. We should also work with our partners like the longshoremen to say, how do you guys become a factor in making sure we have better security at our ports with respect to where the containers are going? So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, we would be in favor of inspecting. I think we can take that as an opportunity to work with the big bad wolf and his tariffs, because that's specifically one of the things he's talking about that he would like Canada to do, to shore up our security at our borders, because our biggest border is with the U.S., and so the more secure we are, the more secure they are. So yes, absolutely. The caution I would see from what I've been reading about the amount of organized crime that's going on, would be just to be mindful that we're not getting the wolf to mind the hen house with the unions that are already at the ports and the borders. But yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I believe this is for Kyle. Climate and environmental protection. This question is asked by resident Ian St. Clair, the Caledon Chamber of Commerce, and a very similar question came from a resident, Barb Emery. What actions will you take on climate change and environmental protection?
I know both. They are frequent emailers into my office, so I know the issues they're concerned about. Look, if we want to actually deal with greenhouse gas emissions, what we should be doing is building more things in Canada. And I'm going to explain why. So the demand for products like critical minerals, rare earth metals, copper, lithium, all these kinds of things, the demand for these things doesn't go away, just like the demand for oil and gas doesn't go away. When we say we're not going to develop mines, we're not going to have any, we're going to reduce our oil and gas, the demand for these things don't go away. It just gets supplied somewhere else. It gets supplied by countries that build mines and mine things at higher carbon emissions per ton. Same thing with most factories in China are powered by coal. If we were getting LNG over to Southeast Asia, we could get rid of those coal-fired generating plants and get them on clean LNG. That would actually make the planet better. What we're doing in Canada right now is we're not doing any of these things. We're preventing these things from happening and saying, look at us, our greenhouse gas emissions are going down. But global greenhouse gas emissions are going way up because the countries that are producing the things we need, they do it with higher greenhouse gases, lower environmental standards, lower human rights standards, lower employment standards. So the Liberal government's patting themselves on the back saying, look at us, we've lowered greenhouse gas emissions. Meanwhile, they're making the planet worse. And we're losing out of the jobs and the taxes and the revenues we get from that. So if you actually want to make the world better, we're doing more things here. We produce the greenest steel in the world, the lowest carbon steel in the world, and guess what? We don't have any green steel procurement from the federal Liberal government. All the solar panels that the government of Canada is investing in, the steel comes from China, the highest carbon emission steel in the world. If we want to make the world better, build more here.
Thank you. Thank you.
The BBC rejects climate alarmism. I know when I say that even it impacts me. Even I am a tree hugger. I truly am. But what we have signed on to here in Canada are global climate agreements, and those agreements, like with the United Nations, the Paris Climate Accord. We say we will do this in order to lower global carbon emissions. Some of those agendas that they have actually are not suitable for our country. Canada does hold 30% of the world's boreal forest. We are actually net zero. Climate agendas are globally driven. What we favor is local environmental focus and support rather than global. So, I've spent some time looking at government in Canada financial statements every year, and I was impacted by how much of our tax money goes to the United Nations, the World Bank, and these Paris Climate Accord, and we even fund, to lower emissions in other countries. At the same time, we're bringing in a great many people into our country. We're really not doing the right thing. What we should do is focus those energies and our own money on local environmental issues rather than global climate issues.
Thank you. Victor?
It's very challenging to, and I guess this is where my age shows a little bit, where I can feel impatient when people still think that the climate's great and nothing's wrong and let's pretend like nothing's changed. The climate crisis is real and happening right now. It's transforming industries, it's transforming the world, it's making places have droughts, and some places have too much water, and there's too much heat some places and too much cold others, and it really is transforming the world. And it's scary looking at my kid and going, what will the world continue to be when we're still dragging our feet? There's not a consensus for the Conservative Party. They're still trying to decide if they believe the science that was figured out back in the 80s and then conveniently tucked away in a drawer because it didn't make the most profit. Putting the environment beneath the profits of corporations, we need to stop that. We need to commit to caring for our climate, caring for the environment. And some of that's transitioned to the clean energy sector. This isn't just a dump everything that existed. It takes time, but we need to start investing that now so that our future generations can have a better place to live, have clean energy industries, stop subsidizing oil and gas. They have plenty of money. They don't need the billions of dollars that our Canadian government's currently giving to them. Let's use that instead to make the transition to new clean industries that can make the future better and not worse. So we're very committed to the environment, to environmental protections, and it's sad knowing that not all the other parties are.
Thank you. Well, you got a chance to answer that one, didn't you? You got a chance to answer that one, didn't you?
Can I go again?
I think we're at Victor, aren't we? Debna. Okay, so further on to climate, what will you do to ensure our community?
All of these agencies are basically funneling money out of the country, and so we will stop doing that. Instead, we would fight real pollution here in Canada. We waste billions of dollars pretending to fight climate change. We're not really fighting it, and so that's what we would do.
Thank you.
Let's get real specific. Will do's. We will ensure that we get back to working with the Paris Agreement, trying to get Canadian net zero emissions, trying to limit warming to 1.5 degrees. There's just these basic elements of we need to stop putting our head in the sand and actually start moving forward on this. Start investing in these things. There's lots of things on this list, and you can find them on our website. So I'll tell you a story instead. About 10 years ago, I met for coffee with my old roommate, and he was doing his PhD at the University of Waterloo. I forget exactly what it was in, but it was in some type of nanoparticles or something like that. And we were talking about oil and gas and the environment, and he said, Victor, they know the solution. They have things now, and I understand carbon capture and elements like that. They know how to do the oil and gas industry in a clean way. It's just expensive. And that was a decade ago. And we're still dragging our feet going, well, but it's expensive. If you've ever looked at the profits that oil and gas can make and is making right now in Canada, there's plenty of profit going around. The CEOs don't need a new yacht. We need our environment. I look at Island Lake is one of my favorite things about Orangeville. The green space around here. When my wife first came to visit, we landed at the Toronto airport and she was shocked because she's from Manitoba. She's like, where does the city end? And then it did. There's trees and farms and green. Let's keep that. Let's keep investing in the green instead of the giant never-ending highway and cities and flattening all of our environment.
Thank you.
Look, we have to have adequate environmental protections in place to protect all the things that are being talked about. But if we're going to go back to talk about climate change, let's have a real conversation about climate change. China's year-over-year greenhouse gas emissions are more than everything Canada produces. So if we turned off everything in Canada, we didn't heat our homes, didn't drive our cars, didn't produce anything, that space would be taken up by China in 1 year. That's their year-over-year. So if we're worried about the effects of climate change, what we actually have to do is look at ways to get countries that are producing so much greenhouse gas emissions to produce less. So I go back to what I talked about. Why has all our manufacturing gone to China? One reason is they have cheap energy because everything's powered by, their electricity's powered by coal. Coal is cheap, their manufacturing is cheap. There's other factors, sure. We've made our energy in Ontario and in Canada so expensive that it's almost impossible to manufacture here. So those manufacturing jobs go into countries that produce more greenhouse gas emissions. Same thing with operating a mine. Same thing with all kinds of other things like oil and gas. There's no carbon dome over Canada, right? If we shut down our carbon emissions, that doesn't, and everyone else's is skyrocketing, it doesn't fix the problem. So I go back to this, like we make the greenest steel in the world, lowest carbon steel in the world. We should make more of it, not less. Because the world needs steel. The need for steel is never going away. The need for critical minerals, rare earth metals, that's never going away. Why should we let countries that will do it at a higher greenhouse gas emission do it with lower environmental standards and we lose all the jobs? We should do it here. If you actually care about the environment, we should be doing more of all of these things here because global emissions are global. So let's do more here in Canada, where we do it at the lowest greenhouse gas intensity with the highest environmental standards. Keep those great paying jobs here, bring those great paying jobs back here, and get the tax revenues and other things to pay for healthcare and hospitals and education. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're starting with Victor this time. There's only 2 questions left, by the way.
And there's closing statements too.
Yes, but we also started 10 minutes late.
So this is again on the climate and environmental protection. This question is asked by Turtle Green Refillery. How will your party deal with decarbonizing our economy in the face of climate change in light of our pro-Canadian opening up of the interprovincial road trade opportunities, while respecting UNDEP, and if you know what that stands for, I'll let you know, it's United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, obligations to our First Nations, Inuit and Métis communities. Don't understand the question?
How will you or your party deal with decarbonizing our economy in the face of climate change in light of our pro-Canadian opening up of interprovincial trade opportunity stance while respecting the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, obligations to our First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities? That help?
I'm going to start with a tangent and then come back. One of the things we talked about before was offshore tax havens and things like that. And often that sounds like a thing that, well, we can't let them get away with it. And then you find out that they're perfectly legal. Some of these things are in place because we put laws in place where you can just go and do that. There are ways where you can just avoid paying taxes and it's fine because the government said so. That you are also able to trample on the rights of First Nations and Indigenous peoples because we just put laws in place that say, okay, we can do that now, and there's nothing wrong with it. But there's an element of care at the core of it, where if we care for people, we need to care for people. We need to care for people's rights. We need to care for people, even as we're trying to expand the economy and interprovincial trade and do all these things, that's fantastic, but we can't just trample on the rights of those who that's their land, that's their home, just because it's profitable. So I think that's one of those elements where it's great to continue to invest and we need to do that, but we can't do that in a way that tramples on people's rights. We can't do that in a way that tramples on First Nations and Indigenous rights. We need to care for those people. We need to care for one another and do that in an approach of mutual respect. It's not something that has to halt all industry, but it's something where working together, you can find ways to do this better. By working with other people, you can find ways where you can do that without harm. So I think that's a piece where, at the very core of it, is caring for people, their rights, their humanity, and things like getting clean water to Indigenous communities. It's taken long enough. We just need to get that done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, look, I think I talked about what we have to do if we care about the environment and we care about greenhouse gas emissions. Reshore jobs, manufacturing jobs here in Canada, produce the minerals and other rare earth metals and other things that the modern economy requires here in Canada, as opposed to in other countries that do it at higher greenhouse gas emissions. No project in Canada is done now without free, prior, and informed consent with our Indigenous communities, and that's something that we would absolutely honor. So as we look to expand our ability to produce rare earth metals, critical minerals, all the things needed for, we talk about going to zero emission vehicles, all those things, those batteries, they need all of those things. And we shouldn't be getting those things from China. China has a stranglehold on the minerals and other things that are required in the production of batteries. And of course, they do all these things at very high greenhouse gas emission levels. But again, we don't do it here because we're trying to say, look at us, we're decarbonizing our economy. No, actually, what we want to do, if we actually care about the planet, is do these things here. And we would, of course, do that if any of these projects are going to take place on traditional territories. Indigenous consent will be required. There will probably be partners in the project, which would be good for their communities economically, and that would be how we would deal with that.
Thank you. Good enough.
We really agree with the Conservative members' ideas, and we would go further and hold them to account, to detach from the United Nations and all the climate global pacts that we've made. A massive amount of money is going to them. And again, focus on real environmental issues here in Canada with our own money. And so what we would do, we would withdraw from the Paris Accord, stop sending billions of dollars to other nations to help them reduce their emissions, and really call a spade a spade. If we really wanted to stop pollution in this country, we'd stop buying things from China. We can't kind of have it both, right? We can't have 10,000 couches and then, donate to the climate fund. The other thing that I notice is that, we have a climate department in our governments, in our local governments now. We've increased the size of the government around this, and that costs us money. And, just remind everybody here that Ontario itself is over 60% of our electricity comes from nuclear power. So we should educate our citizens about actually what our country is and how to protect our resources, how to grow clean energy like nuclear, how to invest in students that work in that industry, and also how to protect our own boreal forest. That would do a lot for the world.
Thank you. That is, we're going to call it in to the questions. You can take a breath. What I will ask you to do, though, is to take 3 minutes and just give us your closing statements, please.
Who do you want to start?
Let's start with Victor.
I just got an email from the NDP, because they email me sometimes. I'm on their list. I don't know how they found me. But it was a nice little summary of so much of what I talked about today. It talks about the NDP cares for universal health care, dental care, pharma care, corporations paying their fair share of taxes in Canada, good paying union jobs that are protected from Trump's tariffs, a price cap on groceries and tax relief for working families, affordable homes built on public lands, believe in the politics of kindness, of helping people out when they need it, and people need it right now. This election we're fighting for the people who are struggling, because that's what Canadians do. New Democrat values are Canadian values. So much of it comes to that policy of care. Caring for one another, caring for those who the luck of the dice was not on their side. There's nothing wrong with somebody who had bought a home at the right time and is now sitting on a great investment, and that's fantastic. I have no plans on taking that away, but I also don't want it only to be to a handful of people that got lucky, because not everyone gets lucky. Sometimes things get hard. Sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes it's no fault of your own. Sometimes you did choose to go into a good paying job in the automotive industry, and then somebody south of the border takes control and shuts down the whole industry for you. There's very little you could have done to predict that. If you put that on the map of the career chart of what you should do, there was no asterisk saying just don't pick something where Trump will tariff you. So let's take care of those people. Let's take care of people when things aren't fair. Let's care for our environment. Let's care for workers. Let's care for people, and let's actually make just Canada a better place. I think that's at the core of what Canadians believe. That's part of why we keep agreeing on stuff, is because some of it we genuinely do. We need more housing. We need more houses built. We need people to be able to live in homes that they can afford. So let's do that. I think there's a few different approaches to it. You've seen that tonight. And you'll see that as we go forward. I genuinely think that approaching taking care of Canada with care, caring about people first, over corporations, over profits, over helping big donors. The NDP is not beholden to big corporate profits and donors. That's part of why it's we're small and scrappy and it's a fight. But we're willing to do that because we genuinely believe in what we're talking about. We genuinely believe in caring for one another and genuinely believe in helping people out. So thanks so much for being here and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
So I think I talked tonight a lot about the Conservative vision for the country and how we would respond to things like Donald Trump and tariffs, my thoughts on climate and climate change. We certainly talked about our economic policy, on cutting taxes, etc. I think if you look at this election, if you like the last 10 years, if you like where things are today, then I think you've got two choices, right? You've got my friend from the NDP, and you've got the Liberal candidate who is not here tonight, which I find interesting because she's been often critical of me on social media, but then doesn't show up to back up that criticism or explain to you why she should have your vote. Those are your choices if you think the last 10 years have been great. If you think you need change, then change is what I'm offering. We've got a great plan to build houses. We've got a great plan to cut down on crime. But I think it gets a little more important than that. You're also choosing who your local representative is, the person whose office you can go to and talk about the problem that you're having right now. That's something I am really proud of. I send out 3 times a year a brochure to my residents, and it says, tell me how to vote. And I get those survey responses in, and that's how I vote on those pieces of legislation. So I don't just show up every 4 years and say, hi, I'm your member of parliament, please vote for me. No, I want you to participate in democracy all the time. I send those out for a purpose because I want to know what you think on particular pieces of legislation. I also hold town hall meetings to make sure I'm informed with what's going on. I show up. That's a big part of the job. I'm not afraid to take on tough challenges. There are a lot of people very unhappy with me when I decided to oppose the waste treatment plant in Erin. But I did it because I thought it was right. I thought it was the right thing to do. You know, I'm now taking on the issue with respect to illegal truck yards, that it's plaguing Caledon. You know, I've joined the call. The town of Caledon has asked Premier Ford to give them extra powers to deal with it. I've joined that call. Again, I'm not afraid to take on tough fights. But it's also being involved in the community. Over the last 3 years, I built a charitable hockey game from the ground up that raised $350,000 to buy an MRI machine for our hospital. Because the hospital doesn't get an MRI machine, they get funding to operate it from the province. The community has to pay for it. So $350,000 to buy that MRI machine, because I care passionately about this community. I'll always be available. I will always fight for you because I love a good fight. And I'd love to have your vote again, even with Fair Vote Canada. I'd love to have your vote again on April 28th. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hi, well, I'll just review the policies again. I think the primary difference really between, you know, of course the PPC, we're a new party. We're founded out of the realization that what's going on is not working. There's industry funding and corporate interference in our legacy parties. So we would stand for a couple of things. One is we need to detach our government from the global entities. Everything we've been talking about is because we have signed on to the United Nations Pact for Migration. That's why we're bringing in all the citizens. This is not because this is not an organic, grounds up initiative. If we need workers for industry, we would bring them in. in, but the massive amount that's coming in. So I think it's time to have a conversation about what's really going on and who's really making policies that are affecting us. And then, because that's what's happening. And that's the same as the climate agendas. Like, we would be looking after the environment, but what we're doing is just basically raping and pillaging the Western countries to go to the global entities. So we're against all of that, and we would push the Conservative government to detach from those agencies so that we could stop an immediate moratorium on residents till we cool down the housing and the economy and the social crisis that is caused by that, then reform the immigration system, work with the U.S., not fight with the U.S., end trade barriers, ignite growth, downsize the federal government. I would love to get into the federal government just to get rid of my own job. I love doing that in business. So remove interprovincial trade barriers, build internal pipelines to improve our economy. As I said, scrap agreements with the United Nations, stop funding global entities, focus on our own national security, ensure our own dependence, and we're the only ones saying abolish the dairy and poultry cartel. And the other thing that we often speak about that nobody else does is some of the charter rights that have been totally stamped on, like our freedom of speech, thought, belief, and consciousness. So that's who we are, the People's Party. I hope I've clearly articulated some of our values. I do love them. I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Good night.
Thank you. I want to thank the candidates for being here, taking time out of your busy schedule to attend our debate today, and thank you all for staying. And it is so rewarding to see some of our young people in the audience, so thank you for being here. If you think your vote doesn't make a difference, it does. And I would encourage every one of us to actually encourage our families, our younger people, to get up there and vote as well, because that will make a difference, because it'll be their future. So thank you very much on behalf of the Caledon Chamber of Commerce, and I hope you have a great drive home, and hope it gets a little bit warmer too. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dufferin, and I'm proud to be running as your Green Party candidate in Dufferin Caledon. I'm running because I believe in a future where young voices are heard, where our environment is thriving, and where we stand for justice, environment, and equity for all. My priorities include fighting for affordable housing, taking real action on the climate crisis, and making sure that we develop a future where every voice is heard and no one is left behind. On voting day, I ask for your support to help us bring fresh energy, compassion, and change to Dufferin Caledon. Together, we can build a future that we're all proud of.
Due to the length of the preceding program, we now join the regularly scheduled program already in progress.
Going to say this nice and quickly because I'm very excited. So clean up the clutter in your home. Curbside giveaway days. They begin April 26th, and the next one is April 26th, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Put out your unwanted items so that people like me can take them and use them, and I'm so excited about this. So for more information, georgina.ca/events.
Fantastic. We've got a great show. Sweet Treats by C is here, and we decorate some Easter cookies.
We learn about some incredible puzzle making with Cal Snake.
Georgina Fire is here with important battery safety information.
Great Highland dancing for a great cause.
And we talk with Kendra about the facts of legal segregation in Canada. So Georgina, refill your coffee cup, and we will see you after the break.
Windows and Doors is a proud sponsor of the Georgina Life Show. Locally owned and operated and specializing in window replacement and door installation. Located at the corner of River Glen Drive and the Queensway South in Keswick.
Sports is life. It's clear cut. everything's out in the open. There's nowhere to hide. I had to prove myself more than anyone else.
You must be so proud of your son. He's gonna go pro. The sky's the limit.
There's always a winner and a loser.
You cannot reach the sky in broken cleats.
Of course, I always want to be the winner. And I did reach the sky.
Norman Kwam, the first Chinese-Canadian professional football player, still holds records to this day. He retired from the sport in 1960 and later became Lieutenant Governor of Alberta.
Public transit, garbage pickup, parks and recreation programs, snow removal on your street. How can you stay informed about these and other important local services? Tune to City Council coverage on Rogers TV. See your community leaders at work on Rogers TV City Council coverage.
Canada is at a crossroads, facing an affordability crisis, strains on healthcare, and climate change. Get to know the candidates running to be your MP and represent your interests in Ottawa. Hear from your local candidates during Rogers TV's coverage of the local campaign. And on election night, Rogers TV delivers the local results. Rogers TV. Watch, learn, vote.
Well, welcome back, Georgina. Before I collapse from the sugar rush, I have to introduce our next guest, Chelsea Dawes, Sweet Treats by Sea.
Hello,
I got it all
You
out.
did.
I'm
You got
having
it
such
out.
a
You
hard
got it
time
out.
today in this sugar rush where I'm like, we have all of this goodness here. But tell us, we're talking about decorating the cookies, which we're going to do, but you're involved with a local entrepreneur doing a fabulous event for kids and families.
Yes, so local business Elpida Cafe and Roastery on the Queensway.
Okay.
I supply all their baked goods for the last 2 years. I'll be hosting my first cookie decorating course this Thursday the 17th.
Okay.
So you're gonna learn, I'm gonna learn, we're gonna learn together.
Yeah.
So we'll.
And do you find that works?
Sometimes, if you have an open mind, we can, hiccups and bumps come along the road, but
Because some kids want it to be perfect.
Yes, and I am that kid. So it all comes with a learning curve, you know.
Yes.
So today we'll show you a couple different ways.
Okay.
Different thicknesses of icings and consistencies will do different things for your cookies.
Okay.
For example, if we take a look over here, we have a little deviled egg cookie.
I
A little,
love those.
something cute, something different, right?
Yeah.
It's nice for dinners. This is a little treat.
Mhm.
And then we'll have something a little bit simpler, like a little bunny.
I love that.
cookie.
That's like glitter.
Right?
I want to make that into a brooch.
Exactly, and
And
it's
wear
simple.
it.
Things to do at home, like you can use little plates at home. You don't need anything expensive. Right? That's the best thing to get started, especially with your kids, right?
And that's what we say. If you can't buy it at a dollar store, don't bother.
Exactly, right? We have different icings. So,
Yeah.
for example, I'll show you one.
Okay, let's
start off. We're going to start off with just our plain little sugar cookie.
Okay.
Now, there's two different types of consistencies with icing.
Okay.
When you go to do your icing, you don't want all of it to pool off your cookie everywhere.
No.
So you're going to start with a thicker icing, and it's
Okay.
a border icing.
Okay.
So when you start, you just lightly touch the top, and you just let it drag. And let it see that line running.
Oh.
See the running line?
I do.
Always keep it a little bit up off the cookie and take your time. And this is real time. So when people order 40 or 50 cookies,
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh, I
they
couldn't.
take a long time. So the people that really go into fine detail,
Holy mackerel.
let me tell you, it takes a while. And I'm not perfect. You see the little bumps and edges?
I love that.
Right? It takes time.
Please, I
so
would've-
that's a thicker icing.
Okay.
And then this is something called a flood consistency.
Okay.
Where it's a little bit more liquidy, but it's going to spread out evenly over your cookie.
Okay.
So this one, you may think you're putting a lot, but you see the difference? See how loose it
Oh,
is?
gosh.
Right? So just a nice, even
love that.